So I recently watched Tron Ares and wanted to talk about it. Even though I utilize this channel to talk about video games and how they relate to the real world, as well as poking the bear that is the disingenuous grifters out there in the gaming space, I decided to make this video talking about the movie. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more movie talk on this channel. So if you're interested in watching this movie on the big screen or just plan on waiting for a home video release, either way, I'm not going to spoil the fun for you. But as far as watching it on the big screen, assuming that you can afford the time and money involved, of course, which I know can be difficult for many folks out there, especially if you have to drag a bunch of kids around that need the big tub of popcorn and candy, sodas, and all that good stuff, and turn it into this big extravaganza where you're out $100+ you might be wondering if it's worth it at all. I will say, at least in terms of the visual flair and special effects in a big blockbuster movie, you won't be disappointed. And of course, the bombastic soundtrack from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross that plays throughout the movie is so impressive in itself that I consider it a character of its own. I watched it at the IMAX in 3D, and the quality of immersion for the 3D effects are so mesmerizing. So unless you can't tolerate the 3D effects or you hate wearing the glasses, I definitely recommend watching it that way for the best experience. But without spoiling anything, as far as the actual story of the movie goes, I do want to address a couple of common complaints that I've seen online concerning this film. These complaints involve the actors of the film itself, namely Jared Leto and Greta Lee. Now I kinda get why people complain about Jared Leto, because he has made some pretty controversial choices in the terms of films that he's been a part of and the way that he acts in them. I'm sure we all remember movies like Suicide Squad, where he played the Joker, and of course Morbius, just to name a couple out of his catalog. And we don't even need to get into the whole running some weird cult thing surrounding his band 30 Seconds to Mars that allegedly is a thing. There's definitely a lot going on in terms of Jared Leto for sure. I don't know if I'd say it was his best necessarily, but it's definitely up there. He played the title character quite well, and I don't really have any issues with that. But I really don't have a problem with him myself. People will constantly say he's a terrible actor, but really outside of Suicide Squad and Morbius, he's largely been in some pretty good movies throughout his career. So if I happen to be wrong about that, tell me what else he was awful in. But if you have been paying attention to the hate from certain people on Twitter online, the real thing they're actually complaining about is Greta Lee, who plays as the CEO of Incom, and they will of course layer the complaints about her as being portrayed as a girl boss in the movie. For those who don't know, a girl boss, also known as a Mary Sue in all kinds of other potential terms, is a female protagonist character that is constantly beating the odds, outdoing and outlasting everybody, not showing any vulnerability or weakness, and in general is steeped with tropes of powerful femininity, which always wins the day. And of course, don't forget that she's not just a woman, but she's a minority woman, an Asian in this case, which is a double foul. And therefore the terminally online grifters have to constantly complain about every little thing they can to layer their xenophobic tendencies by saying, of course, that it is a poorly written plot. You know, like Rey from the Star Wars sequel trilogy, who is overpowered compared to pretty much everybody else in the Star Wars universe, despite not having any Jedi training and all that other good stuff. Well, as per usual with these grifters, they've yet again been proven to be liars, because she is not in fact portrayed that way in this movie. If anybody is a girl boss in this movie, it would probably be Jared Leto's character Ares, even though of course he is not a girl, so that phrase wouldn't fit. But the point is, she actually does show vulnerability several times. She does lose, and it takes a lot of luck and intervention from others for her to be successful in this movie. If anything, I would think she was maybe portrayed as being too weak through most of the film, only really getting it together during the final act. And of course, just to make things even more woke, oh wait, this wouldn't actually be woke, the main antagonist in this movie is also a double minority, a black female. Remember how these grifts always bitch about black female women always being on top of every single little thing like they have done for years, it has been a thing for a very long time. But yes, the main antagonist of this movie, at least the one that has the most consequence to the storyline, is a black female. You would think that these "I'm not racist" bastards would be praising that, but no, we're not going to talk about that at all because it does not line up with the pre-approved narrative. It does not line up with the story that we want to paint for our sheep viewers online. Of course, just to even things out, the other main antagonist in this movie is a white guy. Naturally, of course, there always has to be that catch. We have to paint every single reference in the movie with racial and gender identity, instead of just looking at the characters based on their actual actions, motivations, and how they interact with others and the world around them. After all, we are talking about Disney here, the House of Woke Mouse. So these craven crusaders would have you believe, a multi-billion-dollar international conglomerate that is not going to put their name on something they don't believe is going to be profitable for them. That's really all it takes for a company like this to put out a movie. This is not an ideological grandstand exercise. It's just a calculated bet on what they believe the audience expectations will be. Sometimes that logic fails, like in the case of Snow White. But sometimes it is very profitable, like in the case of Lilo Stitch. And that's all that really matters to a company like Disney. Now, of course, if you really want to put it to the man, I guess you can always sail the seas like a good old pirate like Captain Jack Sparrow. And not some other kind of pirates, of course. I have no idea what you're talking about, Mr. Kash Patel. I did not stream that movie online. But seriously, outside of that really long-winded anti-woke rant that I had to point out about these people, which I hope you found some value out of that, it was a pretty good movie overall. Personally, I would have to give it 4 out of 5 stars. The plot could have been a little better integrated into the past films, though there are several references to the previous movies, especially a brilliant nod to the original during the last part of the film. I thought the movie was very entertaining, it had some solid characters, and it was very much a visual feast and an audible treat. Oh, and Gillian Anderson is in this movie, and despite the fact that The X-Files was over 30 years ago, she's still quite beautiful. I'm always up for an investigation. And of course, the dude himself, Jeff Bridges, is in this movie, doing what the dude does best, and honestly, that alone is enough of a reason to watch in my opinion. Hey, look at that! Some videos just popped up on the screen. I wonder what they could be. Well, I know what one of them is, but the algorithm is recommending the other. Go ahead and click on one of those and check them out. And there is a thing over there to subscribe on the left. Yeah, I think you got it. Thanks, pal. And that's gonna be the last line.